Hello, hello. Right, we're on. Hi, thanks very much for giving up your time at MACH today to come and listen to this panel discussion from the UK Automation Forum. You might not have heard of us, it's new. We started off at the beginning of this year. We've had a couple of events before. This panel has been put together to talk about how the government could maybe help us a little bit more in manufacturing, and particularly in the adoption of automation, which obviously as a country we're not always that great at. So let's, first of all, I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves to you. So you'll get, it's basically lots of trade associations telling us on behalf of their members what could be done. So first of all, Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter Williamson. I'm CEO of Automate UK. We're the industry association for robotics and automation, machine vision, and processing and packaging machinery.
Good morning. That's a bit loud. I'm Nikesh Mistry. I'm sector head for industrial automation and test and measurement at Gambika. Gambika, we're the trade association for instrumentation, process control, lab tech, and test and measurement in the UK.
Morning, everyone. I'm Faye Skelton. I'm head of policy at MACH UK. MACH UK is a manufacturing and representation organisation, and we cover the whole gambit of any manufacturing issues and relate them back to government.
Good morning, everyone. I'm James Selker. I work for the Manufacturing Technologies Association, and our members really cover anything in an engineering-based factory, from machine tools, software, obviously also robotics and automation, and of course metrology, anything really in a production environment. And we also happen to own and operate the MACH show. So thank you all for being here.
Okay, lovely. So let's start off with our first subject, which we're going to say, I mean, obviously, given the government has quite a lot on its plate, not just Rwanda, other things too, is there, does the panel think, one simple thing they could do to support the adoption of automation that would help the success of manufacturing in the short term? And I'm going to go to the end first and we come back. James, what do you think they could do, just the first step?
I've got a very simple answer to that. I think one of the first steps could be to make finance cheaper for automation options, because generally speaking, it's quite easy and there's lots of money available at very good rates to be able to finance hardware because it has a residual value. But as I'm sure you're aware, when you do an automation project, often the hardware is actually a fraction of the total cost involved. And therefore, trying to finance software that has no residual value, or the engineering in order to actually integrate it into that particular application. So I think that if they brought it into the scope of, for example, the British Business Bank, where they guaranteed the loans so that the conventional finance houses could offer much lower rates on the total package, I think that would probably help.
I think we have a lack of chronic investment in the UK, so that's foreign direct investment, but also the banks being nervous to lend. And part of that is that we haven't had for some time a long-term ambition of what the manufacturing sector is going to do. So we're not talking, we might come on to this, but we're not talking a 5-year plan, which is currently what the government has, which is something, but a long-term industrial strategy that underpins skills, what's our export strategy, how we're going to weave net zero and how we're going to capitalise on net zero and not just have it as something that's going to be done to the sector, but actually the sector to actually benefit from. But there has to be a long-term plan for investors to point to them and say, actually, the UK is a good place to invest.
Yeah, I completely agree with you both. In my opinion, I think software is very important, and just to touch on the net zero as well, on behalf of our members, I think if the government was to focus on including hardware, because I think there's a very important education piece in terms of using the correct hardware. A lot of our members are manufacturers of motor-driven systems, and I think the investment into encouraging automation through motor-driven systems, using the correct motors, variable speed drives, soft starters, things that actually have a knock-on effect on the net zero piece, because those equipments and hardwares actually have a direct impact on the efficiency of machinery, improving, the energy usage and reducing the energy usage, which naturally will help the net zero piece. So, a focus on those sorts of equipment will be really, really beneficial to have wider effects.
Okay, Peter?
Yeah, so I think the government have recently announced an advanced manufacturing plan, but I don't think they really consider what the actual definition of advanced manufacturing is. And I think a real clearer definition of advanced manufacturing, that it's the process that you use rather than the product that you make, would make things a lot easier, because people would then identify that using the correct technology and the appropriate technology that's available for you to manufacture is what counts as advanced manufacturing, using robotics, automation, machine tools, rather than focusing on these particular industries that the government deems to be, the essential industries in the UK, because obviously all manufacturing is so essential, and it's a case of using the advanced technologies to adopt and improve on manufacturing.
Okay, thank you. Now, is there an easy win, do you think? Does anyone want to take that one? Is there an easy win that they could say, oh, if only they did this, it would make a huge difference? Or do you think we've kind of covered that? Yeah? Okay. After our easy wins that we've already been talked about, is supporting increased investment in robotics and automation all about funding, or is there anything else that the government need to do? Obviously, we've had the full expensing currently, but what else can they do to help?
So I think there's a cultural change that needs to happen. I think people still have a bit of a misunderstanding about what automation does and is, and perhaps that it takes jobs, or that it has a negative impact on the workforce. And I think the government could really take a steering hand in making sure that the culture changes and that people understand that adopting automation actually helps secure jobs, it helps improve productivity, and actually would be an overall benefit rather than something to fear.
Certainly things about dirty jobs, boring jobs, repetitive jobs. Who wants to do those in 2024? Nikesh?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's that education and knowledge, providing knowledge about what an engineering job means. It's not always those dirty jobs either. There's a whole different side to it as well. So letting people know what is out there as an engineering job, and I think training and skills. If they incorporate robotics and automation more in apprenticeships and training, I think that would really help encourage younger generations, especially, and existing workforce. I think that a lot of attention needs to be paid to the existing workforce already, to upskill and create that training piece to encourage the adoption of automation, where, exactly how you said that, they need to be able to have that extra addition in their skill set.
Sort of taking the fear away from you. Faye?
I think completely agree with all of that. Make UK did some research into the perceptions of manufacturing, and what we found, and particularly when it comes to robotics, you need more school-age children interested in going to that field. And to do that, you need to not only reform how schools think about manufacturing, which is not always great. It's often a second-tier industry when teachers come involved, but also targeting to parents. We did some research, and actually what we found is one of the key ways of getting children to think, wow, manufacturing is really exciting, can we do some really cool things, is unlocking what the parents think about manufacturing, which is obviously going to be a slow burn.
James?
Yeah, 100% agree with all that. I mean, that's actually why we spend so much money, along with our partners, creating an education and development area at the other end of the show, if anyone's seen it. And we assist schools in busing 3,500 students into this show in order to engage them, because I'm sure that many of us in this room, if not all, know what an amazing time it is to come into manufacturing as technology is accelerating. And so obviously we can't acquire and deploy advanced technology without having the skills in order to do that. I mean, it's just such common sense. It's the old three-legged stool thing. which is you need the technology in the first place, you need the skills to acquire and deploy it, and you need the finance to make it happen. And if one of those things is missing, well, I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed.
Okay, Nikesh, I'm going to come on to STEM things now because you're an expert in this area. So what can the government do to encourage future generations to consider STEM careers and as such narrow the skills gap and gaps in manufacturing and labour shortages as well?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know about expert, but I am a STEM ambassador, so I'll stand by that. And that's the start. That's the first place to start. I think the encouragement in people to become STEM ambassadors, the STEM Learning Centre are doing a great job, but they can't do it themselves. The government could help increase, again, that knowledge, let people know how easy it is to become a STEM ambassador. It's not difficult. Anyone with a STEM career can do it, and then that enables you to go into schools, enables you to actually showcase what you've done as an engineer or in science, technology, maths, all of these careers. It's so important to reach out at a very young age as well, which actually gives me another idea to mention primary engineer. There's many different schemes like them, but if you haven't heard of them, look them up. It's a fantastic scheme where they go into schools at a primary age, because I think a lot of the time the focus on a STEM career comes way too late. A lot of us don't know that we want to go into that career because it's not always seen as vocational. But actually right now it almost is. With the number of jobs that are available in manufacturing, you're almost guaranteed a job if you follow a STEM career. So it's really, really important to let the younger generations know that. So I feel that's a really important part, to go into primary schools and let them, and again with the parents, parents and teachers. I think government could focus on educating teachers, because teachers, they do so much for our younger generations, but they also need to know what it means to have, what it means to go into STEM. So I think it's very important what they can do there.
James?
Yeah, again, boringly, I completely agree. I think that it would be nice to have what's termed as a joined-up government, but I think we're going to be asking for that for some time to come. But having the departments lined up around policies so that schools are rewarded and recognised for the extra, curricular activity, I think would be a huge help. But at the end of the day, we need government. I'd like to challenge us, if I may. Do you think we've been doing a good enough job in getting the government to become total advocates for what we need to achieve as an industry and indeed as a country?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more that we can do, for sure. I think one of the areas, and when you say we, associations, but also our members, I think providing very clear pathways out of schools and into careers and jobs is very, very important. And that's incumbent on not just government, but associations like us, but also our member companies, to be engaging with your local schools, to be working with, the people who are going to be providing your future talent. And I don't think our businesses are particularly good at engaging directly with education establishments to kind of provide those career pathways. I think where government could be a lot better is to do things around the apprenticeships in a much more transparent way. I think the apprenticeship levy is broken, to be perfectly honest. It needs so much evolution and change to make it relevant for where we are now, but also signposting people out of schools that it's not just about going to university, but it's about going into an appropriate career path for you. So finding the routes through to apprenticeships or degrees or straight out into the workplace and training. I think that's very, very important. And at the moment, it feels like the focus from the government is far too much on success from leaving school is to get into a university. And that obviously isn't the only route into a manufacturing career.
I think there is, there is evidence to back up on this. There was the annual innovation report that looked at, as one of their findings, and I can't remember the stats, so I'm not going to try and make it up, but it was quite stark, that we have one of the highest numbers in Europe, I believe, of STEM graduates. they don't convert into working by and large in manufacturing firms. So you have this disconnect between, and they generally go to the academia because it's often seen as more prestigious. So you have, on one hand, this lack of conversion from STEM degrees, but if we constantly focus on STEM, I think what we're undercutting is the students and young people that maybe aren't so academically, are not getting high scores on their they're not called GCSEs anymore. I think they're called something else, but I'm out of date. Are they GCSEs still, or A levels? But are really good with their hands and really dynamic. And this is why the apprenticeships is so important. But the apprenticeships are still seen as second rate. So it's about tackling why STEM graduates aren't converting into high achieving manufacturing jobs, but also that we don't want to be locking out the people that really would be really good on a factory line, or really good at thinking slightly more out the box if we're constantly talking about STEM.
Yeah, because they're the tricky subjects as well, aren't they? So, did everyone speak on that? Did we? It went by so quick. Okay, so coming back to your point about robots taking jobs. Is this? I mean, I'm going to ask the audience this actually. Do you think robots take jobs? Are they your companies? Do you think that? Are you selling robots? Are you adopting robots? Anyone? Don't like robots? Just. Oh. Sorry. It creates jobs. It's like I paid you. That's brilliant. But that debate is still not got through to government, has it really? Or how can the government change people's attitudes to that, do you think? It's a tricky job. Do they even think that's a thing?
I think publishing statistics that actually support or one argument or the other would be a really good way forward.
Yeah.
There aren't many great statistics around automation. You've got the IFR reports which talk about how many robots per 100,000 workers that we have in the UK, and we're well down the list on that front. But I think actually trying to support evidence that if you look at some of the more highly automated manufacturing facilities, they are actually increasing their employment, but their employment is in areas that are outside of the traditional manufacturing, sort of labouring type jobs, and they end up being in sales, in accounting and finance, in robot programming, in controls, etc., which are potentially more fulfilling, more well-paid careers. But I don't think the government even considers trying to understand if there's gathering data and statistics and evidence around that. And to James's point, maybe that's something that we as a group of associations should be doing and feeding into the government, but I think that would certainly help.
Yeah, because they like talking to associations, don't they? Because then they're talking to one person and representing 1,000 or whatever. Nikesh, what do you think about the...
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that often with statistics, what's reported is important, but what's not reported is just as important. And I don't think they're reporting on what we are doing, which is quite prominent in the UK. There has been greater adoption, even though it's very, very slow. It's starting to take off quicker. So I think that's important. And as you're saying, the creation of jobs that didn't exist even 10 years ago from now. There's jobs today that I know people are doing that weren't existing when I first graduated. So to me that's even a light at the end of the tunnel. You're sort of seeing, oh, that was a job I might have considered doing back then, and you realise that these are all being created by automation, by robotics, or by more adoption. And the more companies that start to adopt that, the more jobs that are going to start be creating. So, and I think you mentioned it, the jobs that would be replaced by robots and automation aren't exactly jobs that humans want to be doing. Or there's a safety aspect behind it as well. It's creating a safer working environment where humans, we've got minds, we've got skills, we can upskill and do something else to complement that work. So I always feel there's an opening there. So there's a lot more that can be created.
Government is really busy, and MPs are extremely busy. And I think what we've struggled with, probably as trade associations, is cutting through. Why is it important to constantly talk to MPs who are representing their constituents about why manufacturing is really important for their local area? And we've done, when we talked about our research, which is called the Perceptions versus Reality of Manufacturing, we got a good response from Kemi Badenoch, who's the Business and Trade Secretary of State, but also other local MPs. And I think we need to be making the case more about why this is so important for local areas, and why that then matters to the constituency MP, and ultimately they want to be voted back in. I mean, if we're being really quite straight about it. So I think we need to be making a better case about locally why it's important.
I'm afraid I've got bad news. It's not a choice. It simply isn't. And so the businesses out there can either decide to try and hold the tide back, or they can embrace it. And our jobs collectively is to make that as easy as possible to see their success. Because finally you're starting to see a bit more an accelerated adoption, but we are still slipping down the world rankings per 10,000 people in terms of robot deployment. And as we all know, that robots are a subset of automation as a subject. But we really need to get everybody aligned to just understand that this is not a choice, but it is a huge opportunity.
Okay, thank you. I was just, before we come on to questions from you, so start thinking about your questions, people. First of all, I was going to talk about AI, actually, and other digital technologies, which the government seemed to, from the outside, seem to have skipped automation and robotics and gone straight to AI, to like the sexier bit of the, Joe Blogs can understand, well, they don't understand, but, that's a new thing, AI. How do you think that the government should be looking to maybe switch some of that money or the emphasis back to automation, or do you think they'll do that? What do you think, James?
Well, we were lucky enough earlier in the week to have the Secretary of State for DSIT, which is the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology. And one of her main subjects in her keynote speech was including manufacturing within that portfolio and make sure the funding is more evenly balanced, because manufacturing, as we all know, is the most amazing sponge for value. We're known worldwide for our amazing innovation, but we're not quite so good about keeping that wealth in the UK for the benefit of everyone. And so I think finally, the message is starting to get through, thanks to good work done. And I think it just needs to be a lot more and quicker.
Okay, Faye?
I don't think I have a huge amount extra to say, other than I think it goes back to your perception about what is automation going to bring for this country, my manufacturing, but also local areas. And I think it's constantly just trying to make that argument. And AI is really important for manufacturing, but it will be further down the track, and automation is here and can be easily adopted by the vast majority of manufacturing companies.
Yeah, I mean, it always frustrates me with the idea of AI becoming this newfound technology. It's not. It's been there for countless years. Growing up as an engineer, I called it machine learning. That's what I've been using since I've been growing up. So I feel what the government needs to stop doing is using it as a buzzword, like they did when Industry 4 came out, and they'd start throwing around digitalization buzzwords to start scaring people. AI is not that. It's just machine learning. It's technology learning from mistakes, or things that it's learning, literally what it says on the tin. And I think AI is only as good as the information it has. So I think the government needs to pay quite close attention to the AI technologies out there and what stigmatisms they might have. You type in certain things into ChatGPT, for example, you type in an engineer, you're going to see someone in a hard hat wearing a high-vis jacket. So that's not always exactly a true reflection of what it is. So I think ChatGPT and these AI softwares are only as powerful as the information they have. So I think the government could focus on trying to create a better, more realistic approach to AI and show it more as a tool rather than some brand new technology.
Peter.
Yeah, I think it comes back to skills a little bit again. We're lacking enough people to adopt automation and robotics. There's not enough people in manufacturing and engineering. And all of a sudden we're going to go from this leap of we haven't got enough people and we haven't got enough skills to deploy the technology that already exists, but all of a sudden we're going to become a world leader in AI. And it's kind of, I think, we need to have a more pragmatic step change approach. So we gradually develop more and more digital transformation skills, which benefit across all the manufacturing and all automation, and evolve ourselves so that we can catch up with the rest of the world and have sufficient skills around these technologies.
Thank you. It's time for questions. If you have any questions, anyone would like to ask the panel anything? If not now, you can always grab them. They'll just be milling. They'll be milling purposefully after the debate. I hope you found it useful. It's a bit of a moot point with which government we should be talking to, or they've definitely got other things on their mind, both sets. So I hope you found it useful. UK Automation Forum is our website. You can go on there, see previous discussions and future events coming up at Automation Exhibition in June and the PPMA show in September, and then at FANUC later on in the year. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you found it useful.